IVM.
So there's been another great week on IVM, and we're hoping that you enjoy all of the podcasts that we're being able to get out to you. As always, if you're not following us, please do follow us on IVM Podcasts on all the social media platforms. This week on Keeping It Queer, Naveen spoke to Ankit Das Gupta, the social media content manager at Mirror Now. On Who's Your Mommy, Veda discusses mom bods and the toll a pregnancy can take on women. On Vartalav, Akash and Naveen exchange stories with boys from the Bombay Hemp Company. On Pragati, Pawan and Hamsini are joined by Dr. Shambhavi Nayak to discuss the Nipah virus and discuss the nitty-gritties of this new disease. On Simplified, Naren and Chuck break down the difference between schizophrenia and split personality on a shorty. It's been a really, really great week, and I hope that you're going to listen to all of these shows, or at least some of them. In the meantime, let me get you onto this one.
Hey, welcome to Shunya One, episode 57. Today we have an awesome guest who I finally managed to get to the studio after a lot of coordination, and she's from the world of logistics. Can you imagine that?
Because the coordination is in her blood.
Absolutely. But before we get to that, Amit, what's been happening about our Slack responses from last week?
So we're doing a couple of things on Slack. One is we put up a poll. We're going to be doing a poll every Friday following the Tuesday episode so that people can participate. We want everyone to be aware of that. So the poll on this one was on the episode last week. Farooq explained how the delivery aspect of a business is rather critical and can influence costs. So how do you react when you see delivery charges on your packages, right? I mean, like that was something we spoke about a little bit. It turns out that 100% of our responders would rather have the delivery cost transparent. They don't want it to be hidden in any way.
But they would still prefer it to be free.
Well, they would prefer it. No, but I mean, like nobody delivers for. So the way the question was looking for something. Do you A, look for something else? Do you B, don't care? Or C, no one delivers for free. I'd rather have the delivery cost transparent.
Interesting.
And 100% of the responses were that the delivery cost is transparent. And Rhythm Gupta kind of responded to the poll itself with a comment behind it. Back in 2002, 2003, Amazon figured out that one of the top things their customers hate is the delivery cost. That's why they came up with Amazon Prime, and it was a huge success. I think making delivery cost transparent might be counterproductive because of exactly this reason, which I think is true. Yeah. Which is, again, this is the whole thing.
We actually spoke about that too.
People don't know what they want.
Yeah,
they think they do. I have one more announcement for the Slack channel. We're going to be doing AMAs on the Slack channel as well with our ex-guests who have been on the show. Soeb Grawal is going to be on soon, so stay tuned for the announcement of when we're going to do that.
All right. Awesome. I want to invite to the show today Manisha Raisinghani, the co-founder and CTO of LogiNext Solutions. How are you doing, Manisha? Thank you for finally making it here on this rainy weekend, driving through all sorts of traffic, blocked roads, and ironically, this is exactly what your software platform LogiNext does and helps solve for. So, how was the experience?
It was quite a drive, I must say.
Yes.
Like, I do not drive much usually in Bombay, but then today I thought, okay, it's a Saturday. Let me, Google showed me 45 minutes. So I was like, okay, I'm good to go. I left at 11:45 from Powai. I was like, I'll be on time. By 12:30, and then 12:30 I was in Bandra, but then I think I reached studio at 1:30.
Yes.
So it was quite a drive.
And this is the interesting world that we live in, where such dynamic changes in weather and roads just change the way all the clockwork that you had planned, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's an amazing coincidence that your tool and your product actually solves for this. So now, while your journey here was this interesting, what's the journey been like for this company and, of course, for yourself? Could you tell us about how you got to where LogiNext is today?
Sure. So, it has been a roller coaster ride. Now, it was around 4.5 years back when we started. So, Dhruval and myself, Dhruval is the other co-founder. Both of us were in the US. We did a master's from Carnegie Mellon in analytics and optimization. And then I was working with IBM. He was working with Deloitte. Coincidentally, our clients were pretty much in the similar domain. So it was logistics and big data. So I was working with companies like Home Shopping Network, FedEx, UPS. So we were working on a couple of projects together. And that time, and GE Transportation was one of our, was my actually very first client in IBM.
Okay.
And I was, consulting them on how to optimize your cost by saving your fuel and, tracking your vehicles in real time, how to plan their routes better. So we were, we were sitting in Manhattan Starbucks, and Dhruval and I, we were discussing. We were like, wow, coincidentally, we are working in the same domain. So what is your client experience? And I was like, they're spending millions of dollars on, improvising their logistics by introducing technology. So he was like, same here, like they're spending millions of dollars. We are 200 consultants there. They charge $200 per hour for me. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And they pay us like $60 an hour. So we were like, okay, what's happening in India and other Asian countries? And then, when we spoke, we actually spoke to a couple of executives in India from logistics companies, and they didn't have any technology. So we were shocked. We were like, okay, there has to be at least some basic technology in place for logistics. And, that's when we decided, looks like a great opportunity. Startup ecosystem was booming in India. And we were like, okay, let's move back. And we just packed our bags so this is the decision I think we just took in a couple of months. Wow. And we left our high-paying jobs and we moved back to India.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a very, I would say, not a very, we didn't take time to make this decision. We just knew that this is it. This is what we have to do. This is the problem we need to solve.
And when you say there was no technology, right? I mean, this is still 2014 where obviously startups weren't hot yet. I think the next year is when it became super hot. But there was still a lot of old school tech being run by these companies, right? I mean, how was the business doing before this? Before LogiNext came on the scene, before the tech scene exploded in logistics, how was it all working? Like, what was going on in the country?
Sure, that's a very interesting, take, I would say. Basically, people, like companies, had static tools to, record transactions and to show the transactions or show some type of milestone tracking to their customers. But what was missing and is still missing in a lot of logistics companies is the dynamic and the real-time nature of, considering the dynamism that we have in logistics, right? Now, for example, today, Google was showing me 45 minutes ETA. And then it took me around 1 hour 45 minutes. So there's a lot of dynamism when things are moving on the road. Right. So all these dynamic factors have to be considered, and a lot of analytics and optimization has to go behind it to make sure that the way logistics works is not static. So you cannot have static tools to optimize your logistics cost.
Could you describe your tool a little bit more in detail in terms of like what kind of things do you track?
So just to give you an example, right? Say if you order a laptop from Paytm or from a Flipkart. Now all the orders are picked up from the warehouses. Now the warehouse manager would have, say, 10,000 orders to be distributed among 500 delivery boys or 500 drivers. How do they do? Currently, what they do is, okay, this is your area, you take the parcels. This is your area, you take these parcels. Okay, there are 20 parcels left. Let them be here. We will send them tomorrow. Okay. What our engine does is, we consider all the parameters into picture, like traffic patterns, weather patterns, capacity of the drivers, area preferences of the drivers, in which areas are they really doing well, they are doing on-time deliveries. We put a score for every driver. And the algorithms that we have, the planning engine that we call, runs behind the scenes, does all the permutations and combinations possible for these 10,000 orders and 500 drivers, and distributes these orders in such a way that the routes are optimized, the distances are optimized, and the ETAs that the customers are expecting, because these days, everybody is working.
When you expect it, yeah.
Exactly. You are not okay with, we will deliver to you by 21st of June.
Right.
The parcel will be delivered between 3 and 6 p.m. on 20th of June.
Right.
So that's the kind of, accuracy that people are expecting.
Makes sense.
So we provide the ETAs, the real-time ETAs, and all the hard work done by operations manager manually.
Right.
Is now done by the engine.
Awesome. That makes sense. That makes sense. I get that.
Yeah, and when you started out, was this what you realized? Like, obviously you said there's, all the companies you were working with were spending millions of dollars on tech. but the tech involves so many layers, right? There is the hardware of GPS tracking and, a little bit of which I have done in my past, and I know how varied that is. Then there is the software and the intelligence which you just spoke about. So did you know which part you wanted to go after when you looked at this market? Because when I looked at it, it looks like everything is broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which one do you fix first?
Right. So, we knew, but that was not the right thing, and we are not doing that right now. So we started with hardware, and hardware is hard.
Exactly.
It is like really hard, and we have no experience whatever in hardware. And we tried doing the hardware, and we failed miserably at it. That was our first failure at LogiNext. So we were like, and we had, recently moved back from the US. We were in, the working patterns, the working style was more of the US style that we had, because we were working there for a few years. And then obviously you tend to, work in a similar manner when you move back. So first we tried doing the hardware in-house. We failed at it. Then we decided to work with a partner. We found a hardware partner. We told him all the requirements. Okay, this is what we need. And battery optimization is the most important piece. Because packages travel for 6-7 days and the battery has to last for 6-7 days.
Right.
So we gave him the requirements, and it was, I think, early March when we spoke to him. We moved back in January, and early March, April, we spoke to him. And he was like, okay, I think I'll need 3 months and you can give me 50% advance payment. We were like, okay, it's fine. So we gave 50% advance payment. And so March we met him first. And then we spoke to him in May. We were like, okay, the work must be going on. We don't need to follow up,
Right.
because you don't have follow-up culture in the US. So in May, when we spoke to him, we were like, okay, where are we? Like, are we good to go for at least beta testing so that in June, we can go live with the production? And he was like, okay, I haven't started the work. We were like, really? And that was our first lesson.
Wow.
There were things that we had to actually unlearn. And I think pretty much, all the entrepreneurs have things which they have to learn and unlearn. So and then we decided, okay, this is not our forte. We don't know how to do it. We have never done it. So let's do what forte we have. And our forte was analytics and optimization and intelligence. So we focused on that. We started with analytics and intelligence. And, after working with a couple of clients, we realized that, okay, we need to have a base system as well. A transport management system or an order management system on which our software can actually, sit on top of that.
Right.
So the main core is real-time visibility, analytics, which is location analytics, and optimization.
Yes. So the software was finally what you realized is something which you have. Like, hardware is an area of no control, really, right? I mean, there is so much happening in the hardware world, and sadly enough, I think China beats India on that so much that there's very little which most hardware entrepreneurs can do. But at the same time, right, so when you build the software, how did you go about actually selling it to folks and convincing them that this is something they should pay, serious money for? Because after all, you're running a business, and that to a SaaS tool. Could you tell us about how that evolved? Like, because this is a domain in which, as you said, the IBMs and the Deloittes of the world were, and not any startups, not SaaS software companies especially. So how did you make the transformation into that?
Sure. So obviously the first few customers were free. We didn't charge them because we wanted to, test our software as well. But the way we went about was again with data. So what we did is we met with one of the courier companies, one of the big, large courier companies in Bombay, and we met them. We were like, okay, see, the kind of visibility that you show on your portal is not correct. So they were like, no, it's all right. I mean, every logistics person, every operations manager you talk, they feel, wow, their operations are amazing, smooth, no problems at all. Right. So, and before meeting them, what we did is we had, ordered a few GPS trackers and sensors from China. So after our hardware failure, we started working with the vendors and partners who source the hardware from China. So what we did is we were sending these sensors from one city to another to our friends through their courier service. And so we had all the data, like what the GPS sensor is actually showing and what their website or what their customer representative is actually telling us. So we had all that data. We went to them with data back and we showed them the real data. Like, this is what we were doing. And doesn't look like everything is good. So let's talk.
Wow, that's a nice one.
So that was actually our first client meeting, and we closed it in one meeting. And then we thought, wow, it's really easy to close clients until we started working with enterprises. And then, wow, there's a 4 to 5 months of sales cycle as well.
Yes, of course. So
Because if you're talking 100K, 200K deal sizes, dollars deal sizes, then you have to really, you have to have that high touch sale, because it's an enterprise sale.
Right.
So it's a high touch sales. And it takes around 3 to 5 months to close a deal with these large enterprises.
Oh yeah, and that's where
I'm sure you would know this the best.
I'm seeing this firsthand as well, of course, and that's how enterprises in India work. They want you to come for a meeting. They want you to show up, show you, and data doesn't always convince them. A lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, free POC."
Exactly. So, but it's very interesting. This is not only in India. So it's been 2 years. We have started selling in international market as well.
Right.
So we started with Southeast Asia and Middle East Asia, and in the US as well. So it's pretty much the same.
Right.
I mean, enterprises do expect you to have a physical presence, to be there, meet them, do the POC, do the pallets, because it's the thing is, they integrate deeply with your product, right? Because if something is operating at scale, that means the two systems have to be integrated and talk to each other rather than someone. For example, let's talk about orders, right? So any average e-commerce company does around 1 lakh orders a day.
Wow,
now, to do that kind of a scale, no operations manager is going to go to your product and keep on uploading the packages.
Right.
So there has to be system integration. And whenever two systems are talking, the integration is, we are talking about integration. They have to take a very, thoughtful decision on, is this the right company to partner?
That's right. Yeah, it's not easy to just change someone over, even though
Exactly.
we call ourselves SaaS, but there is a lot which goes behind the scenes.
Exactly. And this is enterprise SaaS, right? Now, SMB SaaS is very different.
Correct.
While enterprise SaaS, SMB SaaS, probably the sales cycle would be hardly a month. And if the customer is not responding in 2-3 months, you just let them go.
Yes.
In enterprises, you have to be like really persistent.
Yes. You really have to go after what you're trying to sell and convince them and convince multiple layers of people as well.
Exactly.
But of course, since then, you all have been thoroughly, like you just mentioned, expanding all over the globe. So congratulations. And LogiNext is obviously doing great. You have Paytm as one of your biggest backers. And so awesome stuff to listen about the journey so far. What we're going to do is take maybe a quick break and come back and talk some more.
Hi, I'm Vishal Gondal, an entrepreneur. I've had the chance to meet and understand how some of the super achievers have hacked their way to success, and they have done spectacular innovations. Now I take a closer look at these people's lives to find out what lies beneath the force, only on the Vishal Gondal Show. Episodes out fortnightly on Wednesdays on the IVM website, app, or your favorite podcasting platform.
All right, welcome back. So I'm here with Manisha, and we've obviously been talking about the software platform that LogiNext is, but behind the scenes, how have you over these years built out this entire tool? What is your technology behind the scenes which actually does all of this fascinating route planning automatically and makes the lives of all these operations managers so easy?
Sure. So let me start with, how the route optimization works, right? So basically, we have built a heuristics platform. Now, what it does is basically there are a couple of different algorithms that we use for different kind of deliveries happening. So basically, there can be pickups and drop-offs, or there can be only pickups, or there can be only drop-offs. So if you see, logistics has different legs, starting from first mile to middle mile to last mile. And when you combine all three legs, you get end-to-end visibility and end-to-end optimization. So we are using heuristics, we are using ruin and recreate algorithm. What it does is it finds an initial solution on basis of, all the permutations and combinations which are possible. So a lot of iterations, so there are around 20,000 to 2 million iterations which happen on basis of what is the input to the algorithm. So after all the iterations, these solutions are compared against each other. So there are different cost factors which go behind the scenes. So a few cost factors could be, your distance cost, your time cost, then your waiting time cost, then your, say if two vehicles are going to the same location, is that an extra cost that you're bearing? So the cost of vehicle, the salary of the driver.
Of course, everything comes into
Everything comes into picture.
Wow.
So basically, ultimately the objective function is to optimize the cost, to reduce the cost and increase the number of deliveries. So there are two mechanisms we follow. One is constraint-based planning and another is penalty-based planning.
Wow.
So yeah, this is the real tech that we are doing behind the scenes. And that's one thing. And then from stack perspective, we use AWS services heavily. We have a microservices architecture because, of course, for scalability, you need that kind of an architecture. If you're processing around 1 million shipments on your platform, then you definitely need a good, scalable architecture. Plus, one proud thing is last month itself, we actually collected around 1.5 billion data points on location.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, these are the hardcore tech stuff that we are doing.
That's awesome. And you're doing this building out of Bombay, out of Hawaii, with a tech team sitting here. It's a recurring theme on this show where all Bombay entrepreneurs talk about how much of a challenge that itself is to put together a cool tech team. How have you guys been able to do it?
Yeah, don't get me started there. I think so, yeah. A lot of, people who have come on this show have spoken to we keep on discussing, what do you do for talent acquisition? What do you do for talent acquisition? How to get the best talent, especially being in Bombay and being in enterprise SaaS. Because if you see a lot of, candidates who are actually startup focused, who would love to work with startups, for them, startup is like a B2C startup. It's a consumer app.
Right.
Oh, I want to work with an Uber. I want to work with Google. So for them, it's more about startup means cool startup.
Correct.
But here, it's enterprise startup, right? And it means real business. Yeah. So we totally focus on revenues and not on, spending a lot on marketing, basically. Because in enterprises, it's all about
the actual revenue. Yeah.
Exactly. Actual revenue and the value that your clients see in the product. So yeah, we have a lot of sources we hire from, of course, startup platforms like Angel, Hirist. Then we get a lot of inbound talent as well. We do arrange meetups wherein we get talent there as well. But one interesting thing that has worked out really well for us, and it's been 2 years we have been doing this, is we partner with US universities. So we have a lot of connects in the US, right? We were from Carnegie Mellon, and one of our professors is now in Urbana-Champaign, UIUC. Okay. So basically, we partner with them. We work with their PhD students. We work with their master's students. And they co-build the solution with our developers. Wow. So we get their expertise on the latest technologies that are being used, and they have really good minds, of course, and they have the best, I would say, mentors and guidance in the form of their professors and PhD students.
Wow.
So a lot of, we actually utilize a lot of talent from US.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, and that too, in a domain which is like this, the few things which you mentioned earlier, right, which are very domain-specific algorithms, domain-specific strategies which you might have, which you have to translate into your tech platform, obviously. You do need these very specialized sort of people on your team in some way. But has that really been something you feel is your advantage in the market against anyone else doing similar things?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we are working with a PhD professor. So she's not even PhD, she's a PhD professor. She teaches PhD and she has done PhD in transportation analytics.
Wow.
So that's like, to the point for us. It's like the bullseye for us. And she has actually allocated 2 of her PhD students to us to work on the data that we have collected.
Wow.
So it's interesting, new concepts, because so if you know, Carnegie Mellon is actually the hub for driverless cars on which Uber was building, right?
Okay.
So what Uber did was they actually poached all the professors from Carnegie Mellon.
Wow. Okay.
So Carnegie Mellon is actually known for it's the best school for robotics and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And a lot of what we do in terms of working on map data, working on optimization techniques, it is very similar on the talent which is actually available in these universities. So Georgia Tech is another university we work with. Now, if you know, Georgia Tech has its own supply chain institute.
Oh.
So we work with students from Supply Chain Institute.
Interesting. And all of this never somehow got built in India, like these talents, even though it's such a complex maze out here to actually solve for. And I'm sure there are so many companies you guys obviously must be having as customers, e-commerce, or now there's food delivery, and there's logistics is core to, I would say, most on-demand businesses now, right? I mean, it's a whole new world we live in, where it's the one thing which differentiates who you choose to order from or who you choose
Absolutely.
to work with. Yeah? Right? Because everything else is the same.
Right.
So going forward, what kind of innovations are you guys bringing in on your platform which you think makes it all unique? Like how do you still make yourselves the cool company where tech wants to work for, even though you're doing enterprise sales?
Right. So we actually do hackathons, techathons to call it, in our company, which is for our own team members. So we form obviously a team of 5-6 people and they come up with cool ideas. So when recently the techathon that we did in February, one very good idea came was voice controlled logistics.
Okay.
So basically we have integrated with Alexa, and which is again AWS service, the EcoBot thing, and they have actually started advertising now in India. So very, very funny incident. I was sitting with my dad and we were watching IPL, and then this ad comes up of a grandma talking to the EcoBot, and my dad was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's my moment when you tell me to explain technology to you, what you are doing to a grandma kind of a thing, right? I was like, the way you search on Google, you get answers. You just have to talk to Alexa and she will give you all the answers.
Right.
So what we do is we have integrated with Alexa. So one example would be now ops managers, right? They have a very, I would say, rough job. I mean, they are sitting in the warehouses. Obviously, they do not have ACs and stuff. So for them, using the computer sometimes becomes difficult. So apps going mobile is one thing, but then when you have to talk about all these complex activities which are happening behind the scene, there has to be a simple mechanism. There has to be a simple user experience. Now, user experience is not only about interfaces, right? Like what you see. It's also about what you hear. Can your technology listen to your audience?
Right.
So one example is if the operations manager says if he wants to plan the orders, they can just say, Alexa, please ask LogiNext to plan my orders and assign the drivers to the orders.
Wow.
And within
awesome.
a few minutes they get the results.
Okay,
that's awesome. Yeah,
that's insane, right? I mean, that's got to be. So basically, they're triggering off all of your backend processes with this command, right?
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that's insane.
And then you have to properly tag the right keywords, because some companies would call orders, some companies would call it packages, some companies would call it shipments, some would say deliveries, some would say drop-offs.
Right.
So all this again NLP goes behind the scene, which Alexa does really very well. So a lot of tagging has to happen to give the device the context on what the user really wants to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think AI, all of these things, voice control is all about context. Like saying less but understanding more, right? That's
Exactly.
what the tech is all about. And of course, that's, I think, led to you guys getting quite a bit of recognition also, right? All over the place because of these sort of innovations. And how has the competition been while you were scaling up all this while? I mean, as a SaaS product, while you're going up against, like, I'm back to the same point of those big ERPs of
Yep.
the world and so on,
Yep.
right? So how do you see those people not being able to do what you guys are doing, and obviously you're hence getting ahead?
So yeah, we actually come across companies like Oracle Transport, OTM, Oracle Transportation Management System, and we come across a few US companies as well, like Forkites, Paragon. These are these are typical competitors we come across. The best part that we have is agility. Right. I mean, I think that's most startup founders would agree, right? As agility and innovation, these are the two things. So that your tech should always be ahead, at least 10 steps ahead of the competitors. So we do a lot of competitive analysis, and the product managers are always top of, what features to build, what clients really want. Two interesting things that we do here is, so we focus a lot on design thinking. Now, logistics is complex, but you want to make sure your tool makes it very simple. So it's very important for team who is working on building the product to understand how the operations work. Because if you are working for a B2C company, you can use the app. If you work for Swiggy, you can order food and you can relate to it. What you're building, you can actually see it. But again, in enterprise, it's very difficult for your team to connect on how the customer is actually using it.
Right.
And this is not only for designers or product managers. This is even for developers who are actually building the product. Because I think the gap between business and engineering is reducing now, and developers are getting more focus in actually understanding the business and then coding rather than just coding according to the specs.
Correct.
So in our onboarding program, like in our employee onboarding plan, whenever a new person joins, we actually have 1 day for field visit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to ask that. Do you really send them to warehouses?
We really send them to warehouses. So they actually follow the drivers also on their bikes.
Oh, wow.
So we have done that as well.
Amazing.
So we keep dedicated, 2-3 hours for them to go and visit our clients' warehouses, talk to drivers, because the kind of audience that we have were not very tech savvy till Jio. Of course, now they are tech savvy.
Right.
After Jio, everybody is like amazing at using their mobile, especially in India. We actually send them along with the drivers and see, how they are actually using the app, what kind of difficulties are they facing. So we focus a lot on design thinking.
Right, and that's how obviously you've optimized for, solving their needs, and again at each level, not just at the guy who looks at dashboards level, but also on the field. So where do you think it's going from here? Like, obviously you mentioned a few cool things like Alexa integration and so on. Where is where do you see not just LogiNext but overall the tech which is happening in being used in this domain? Where do you see it going more and more? Because I feel, for one, everything has a GPS in it now, right? If all of our phones have a GPS, cars have inbuilt GPSs now. Everything pretty much is always being tracked, right? I mean, it's such an integral, location is such an integral part of our lives. And then there is indoor location and a whole bunch of other technologies which have been existing. So where do you think the focus is going to be, and what kind of other new cool tech are you guys working on?
Sure. So 4 years back, it was a challenging task to even collect data. That is something we have crossed that river now. Now it's about what to do with that data. So that is very important. Going forward, I think bringing in more and more real-time visibility and talking to other systems. So here, what's important here is only your system cannot do the charm. There's the whole entire ecosystem of other players which are sitting there. So for example, we integrate with weather.com, we integrate with Google Maps. Then we integrate with Twitter for sentimental analysis. So I'll give you a very simple example, right? Today Google was showing me 45 minutes.
Right.
But if we would have run this on our tool, I'm sure it would be much better than Google. It would be at least 1 hour, 15 minutes. Because then it sees that what are the sentiments. Okay, the Mumbai rain hashtag is all around in Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So how can you actually integrate more and more tools with your tool to make it a holistic tool?
Wow.
So seamless integration is one of the key factors that all the enterprises definitely look at.
Yeah, and more new data sources like this, which are non-structured data sources, which people don't understand easily.
Exactly.
But probably if you had integrated Twitter, you would have known.
So that is one thing. The other thing is bringing in more of machine learning. Now, people need to understand that machine learning is different from a rule engine. Like a lot of things can be done by an if-else versus using machine learning.
Yes.
So it's a very important differentiation to have on where to actually use statistics and where to use analytics.
Of course.
So a data engineer is different from a data scientist.
Yes, of course. We had the guest speak about this specifically and how demystify us between what is stats, what is ML, what is big data, what is AI and machine learning. And I mean, all of these buzzwords are so commonly thrown around. But when it comes to actually, of course, building something and when it comes to hiring as well, you need to know what kind of talent will give you that edge.
Exactly.
And
because certain things can be actually done by using very simple technology. These days, the cloud platforms, AWS, Google Cloud, they have made certain things so easy for you that you really need to focus on the business problem.
Right.
A lot of developers, a lot of companies still feel that you should be building things from scratch. But we are really good at reusing the technology which is available outside. I think for developers, that is very important. That rather than just, building things from scratch, do not reinvent the wheel. Do not. That is one suggestion I would. We did that. We did this mistake, I would say, around 18 months back. But then we learned quickly. We were like, okay, we do not want to reinvent the wheel. I do not want to attract developers that, we are doing this cool thing by building a queue right from scratch. Because we have Kinesis, we have SQS. Why do I have to build the queue from scratch? Let me focus on my client problem and not focus on engineering problem which is solved by AWS.
Right. Yes. Oh my God. I talk about analytics and engagement all day, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Like, why do people want to build them? Why do people still want to build their own in-house tools for things which are easily available?
Exactly.
Right? And that's the change in mentality again, which you need for people who you want on your team, right? While you'll have your university scholars who will help you with the deeper problems, you'll still need folks who are, I think, more efficient as team members, right? Who can just put things together quickly, are more conversant with newer age tools which are ready to use instead of saying I will write ABCD myself.
But for that, I think the best strategy for companies is for having your team members, like you have to invest your time by sending them to the right meetups. There are a lot of AWS events happening, a lot of Google Cloud events happening. So if you encourage your team to attend these meetups and attend these events, they automatically know, oh wow, this is already available. Why do I need to do? And if I need to do, then probably I should work with Amazon.
Yes. Wow. All right. But thanks so much for telling us about how, the story has been, of course, and going forward. You guys are obviously, I'm guessing, hiring. So it's always a fight between all the folks left in Bombay to hire the best talent all around.
Yeah, and we can't poach from our group, Bombay Hackers and Painters. So we have a group, Bombay Hackers and Painters, where we have a lot of, founders. So we all are friends, and we cannot hire from those companies. So we are left with nothing.
Yes, I know it's always going to be a struggle, but I'm sure as we all become more efficient, a lot of talent talent pool will come back from Bangalore, I think.
So yeah, we are hiring across a lot of departments, I would say, right from tech to marketing to product to business development. And in fact, today itself, Dhruval just shared an image which I saw. He was in the US, so I saw it at 3 a.m. So wherein we have like around 12 positions open, and he has just shared one creative. These are all the positions. Please apply whatever is applicable to you.
Yes, it's always a fight like that. Yeah. But thanks so much for doing this, Manisha. I think we got a great insight on what LogiNext is and how you guys are really innovating across the board. And I'm sure one day you will have, or maybe you already do have real data coming in about which roads are blocked and which roads are water stuck. And
it is in progress. Yeah. So the new maps building is in progress. So we'll talk about it,
We want behind the scenes access to the better Google Maps, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for doing this. Where can people talk to you on Twitter maybe, or... where do people reach out to you?
So Twitter, or you can reach out to me on my email ID if you have any, if you need any suggestions, or if you're looking for a change, to work on some really interesting and cool things. Yes, enterprise is not cool, but we make it cool.
Yes.
So I'm at manisha.r@loginexsolutions.com.
Awesome. And Twitter, you're on at Manisha Raisinghani.
Yes.
All right.
Cool. And guys, just a reminder, please subscribe to the Slack channel. Go to the website, ivmpodcast.com/Shunya One. There's a button over there that says subscribe to Slack. Please press that button, send us your email address, and we'll send you an invite quickly. And also, please do make sure that you give us reviews wherever you're listening to this. If it's iTunes or if it's Savan or if it's Castbox, wherever you're listening to this, just please give us a review.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Yes,
Thank you.
As you can see, we have a podcast listener in his natural habitat. Millions of years of evolution have led him to this point. He's on his way to work, and listening to podcasts makes his miserable day better. He will now head to work and use all his knowledge to communicate with other colleagues and possibly future mates. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out all the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.